Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Babel on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chafalef, Daf 21 of Masechta Shkolim. So the Daf begins wrapping up the different Tanai Bezdins that we had began discussing in the Mishnah yesterday, and I think it was yesterday, yeah. And then we get to the 8th and final parak of Masechta Shkolim, and we're going to see a lot of stuff that we've seen before. The first Mishnah in the 8th parak we've seen in Masechta Psachim, and some of the Gemaras that go on over there we've seen earlier in Masechta Shkolim. So some familiar things. Let us start on Daf Chaf Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Kohen Gadol Shemeis V'chulei. Right. So we had said that if you have a Kohen Gadol who passes away, so it's a Tanai Bezdin that the Minchas Chavitin, the daily Mincha offering of the Kohen Gadol, continues to be brought every day and funded by the communal offerings, by the communal funds. So now, the last thing that we had said yesterday was that Reb Shimon says that Mishal Tzibur, that the Minchas Chavitin in this case, is funded by the communal offerings, and he brings a pasuk to prove it. Chak olam mishabrisku salo. He brings it from the pasuk that says Chak olam. It will be an eternal statute, and therefore he learns out from those who the covenant is made with, which is Bnei Yisrael. So Bnei Yisrael funds it. Now, in fact, the Gemara, Rebba bar Mamel bai michlefashit said Reb Shimon. So Reb Abba bar Mamel points out that Reb Shimon seems to be having two different opinions. What does that mean? So Taman over there, which really means over here, Amar Mishal Yorshin Vacha Amar Mishal Tzibor. Meaning our Mishnah had said, how do we know that the Minchas Chavitin is funded by the communal funds? If the Kohen Gadol passes away, until there's a new Kohen Gadol appointed, the answer is, it's a Tanai Bezdin. Bezdin decided that it's going to be funded by the communal funds. Yet the last thing we said yesterday was it's pashit a pasuk in the Torah, which means it's not Tanai Bezdin, it's Midoraisa. So, right, Taman, which means really here in Shkolim, Amar Mishal Yorshin, it's saying that really Midoraisa, the Minchas Chavitin in this case should be funded by his heirs. However, it's a Tanai Bezdin that it should be funded by the communal funds. V'hacha, and there, in this case, in Menachis, Amar Mishal Tzibur. In this Brisa, he's bringing from a pasuk that it's Midoraisa, that it's funded by the communal funds. So Amar B'chia bar Abba, V'lo Yahusu Makshe. And B'chia bar Abba just is kind of given moral support. He says, and it's taka a good kasha. Thank you, B'chia bar Abba. Also, Reb Yaakov bar Acha, Reb Abou, B'shem Reb Yochanan, Dvar Toru, Sheteba min Atzibur. Okay, so really, Midoraisa, yes. According to Reb Shimon, the funds, the Minchas Chavitin, when the Kohen Gadol passes away, before they appointed a new Kohen Gadol, is Midoraisa, it's paid from the communal funds. And now this is like a little bit weird. Haisi Omer Yigbula Iskinish Teba Mitruma Salishka. I don't know, I guess you would have thought that maybe they should make a separate collection for the Minchas Chavitin in this case, therefore we needed the Tanai Bezdin to say that no, Itaka comes from the Truma Salishka, from the Machzis HaShekel. So it's Midoraisa according to Reb Shimon. The question is just, is it a separate collection or is it from the Machzis HaShekel? So the Tanai Bezdin is from the Machzis HaShekel. It's not a separate collection. Alright, sounds good to me. Let's go weiter. So when we say that when the Kohen Gadol passes away, so the Minchas Chavitin, which is an Asiris ha'efa, a tenth of an efa. So generally, the Kohen Gadol splits it in half. He offers half in the morning and half in the afternoon. Now, we had said that in the case where the Kohen Gadol passes away, and they have not yet appointed a new Kohen Gadol, so the Minchas Chavitin is brought all at once. It's brought whole. It's not divided in half. So the kasha is, so what does that mean? Does that mean, right, does the Gemara say, does it mean Shlema b'shachos v'Shlema ben Arbaim? Or Shlema b'shachos v'Tela ben Arbaim? So when we say that the Minchas Chavitin in this case is brought whole, does that mean it's brought whole in the morning and it's brought whole in the afternoon? So basically we double the offering? Or does it mean, no, it's all brought at once. Instead of dividing it in half and doing 50% in the morning, 50% in the afternoon, we just do it all at once in the morning, and in the afternoon we don't do anything at all. That's what the Gemara wants to know. So kate pshitale, and if you're going to say dichsiv minchas tamid, and if you're going to say, well, certainly what it means is that we're going to offer the full amount in the morning and the full amount in the afternoon, because after all it says minchas tamid. It's a continual korban mincha, i.e. it has to always be there morning and afternoon. You can't just have it in the morning. That wouldn't be continual. You need the morning and the afternoon. Okay, but let me ask you a kasha. Shloshes lugin, mahin. What about the 3 loaves of oil that accompanied minchas chavitin? Is it shloshes lugin shachos or shloshes lugin ben arbaim? Or lug v'mechza shachos v'lug v'mechza ben arbaim? So then when we say that we offer, right, well, when we know that with the minchas chavitin is 3 loaves of oil, does that mean 3 loaves of oil in the morning now and 3 loaves of oil in the afternoon? Or maybe when it comes to the oil, we continue splitting that in half, and it would be 1.5 loaves in the morning and 1.5 loaves in the afternoon. Amr b'chizkiya ufachat tzrichale shnei komtzin mayin. Shnei komtzin b'shachos v'shnei komtzin ben arbaim, or komtz achas b'shachos v'komtz achas ben arbaim. Chizkiya points out that there's more to the minchas chavitin. There's also the fistful of frankincense, of levona. So, so when we say that you'll offer the minchas chavitin in its entirety, so would that mean that you would do 2 komitzes of levona in the morning and 2 komitzes of levona in the afternoon now? Or is that split up 50-50 and you would continue to just do 1 fistful of levona in the morning and 1 fistful of levona in the afternoon? What do you guys think? I don't know. Well, Rabbi Yosa points out, well, where do we learn out bichlal this concept of a fistful of levona? As we learned the other day, from the korban mincha of a sin offering. It says a kometz over there. Here it says shnei komtzin, but I don't think that that's correct. Malalan shnei komtzin, afkan shnei komtzin. I think what it means is that really over there it's 1 fistful. So over here also it would be 1 fistful. You wouldn't do 2 fistfuls in the morning and 2 fistfuls in the afternoon. Rather 1 fistful in the morning and 1 fistful in the afternoon. And says Reb Chizkiya, where do we learn out the concept of 3 loaves of oil? From the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. Malalan shloshes logan, afkan shloshes logan. So I guess just like by the afternoon Talmud it would be 3 loaves. So I guess here also it's 3 loaves for each one, I guess. Alright. Unless it means 3 loaves total. It's hard to tell. Matam tzrichale, afkan tzrichale. And just like over there, I guess in Menachos they ask this kasha, here also they ask the kasha. Alright. Classic Yerushalmi Shkalim, unclear what it's talking about. Alright, let's go weiter. So we had said that another one of the Tanai Bezdins was that there is no me'ilah when it comes to the Efer Paraduma, the ashes of the Paraduma. There won't be a din of me'ilah. You won't have to bring an Asher me'ilos if you get benefit from them. Okay. Reb Shimon bar Nachman, no, Reb Shmuel bar Nachman, B'Shem Yonason, B'dinhi sheim aluba, Ve'en gazu shloim aluba. Reb Shmuel bar Nachman asks a kasha, the name of Reb Yonason. He says, what does he say? He says that the Tanai Bezdin is that there's no din of me'ilah by the Efer Paraduma. Now the kasha is, so that sounds like Mida Oraisa, there is a din of me'ilah by Efer Paraduma, but the rabbis came and they said, no, there is not. But V'atani, but 1 second, we taught Chatos, that the Paraduma is treated as a Korban Chatos, Melamed Shemaya Alim, which teaches that there's a din me'ilah by the Paraduma, but Ba Mo'alin, Ve'en Mo'alin Be'efra. Yeah, there's a din me'ilah by the Para Aduma itself, but not its ashes. Meaning, so even Mida Oraisa, there's no din me'ilah by its ashes. So what's the point of the Tanai Bezdin? Why do we need a Tanai Bezdin to say that there's no din me'ila by the ashes of the paraduma? Even midoraisa, there's no din me'ila. So Amar Babau, Barishona you miskas mishta oiva avoy. Babau, Barishona are you mishtakshikin? Mishatakashkin? Alright, let's go with that. Mishatakashkin. But Vinosan also Agabi Makosein. So initially they would dissolve the Ephor Paraduma and put it in their wounds. I guess it was healing or whatever. So meaning, yes, it's true that really Me'ikar Adin, there's no din me'ila by the Ephor Paraduma. However, because there's no din me'ila by the Ephor Paraduma, people weren't treating it properly. They were just chapping a shtickle and putting it in their wounds if they needed to. So V'gazu Shimaluba, so they made a gezerah. Hey, Midur Abanan, there's a din me'ila by the ashes of the paraduma, so that people won't put it in their wounds. And then came shenigdiru gazu shelo yimaluba. And then once already the goal or the purpose of this gezerah was achieved, which is that people stopped, using the Ephor Paraduma for personal purposes. So then they were able to, revert back and apply this Tanai Bezdin, which is that there's no longer a din me'ila by Ephor Paraduma, just like the real principle of the halacha is. We had said in the Mishnah that if there are these bird pairs that become puzzles, so the Tanakama had said it's paid for by the communal funds. Rabbi Yossi said it's paid for by the supplier of the birds to the Beis HaMikdash. I think it is a price that we had seen earlier. Yeah. Well, then how, if you have a woman that her bird pair becomes puzzle, how does she get her kapara? So Rabbi Yitzchak, Tanai Bezdinu, Amasapik Sakinin, Umasapik Sapsulus Vesa Ovdis, says Rabbi Yitzchak, it's a Tanai Bezdin, like Rabbi Yossi says, that the supplier of the bird pairs to the Beis HaMikdash, he covers the bird pairs that are puzzle or lost. Hajan Olach, Perek Mos Shenimtzu, we will come back to you, Perek, money that is found. The 8th and final Perek of Masechta Shkolim begins with Halacha Aleph, says the Mishnah, Kol HaRoken Animtzoin B'Yerushalayim Tohorin Chutz Mishel Shuk Ha'elyon Divrei Rabbi Meir. But this, I believe, is we have seen this, we saw this Mishnah in Masechta Pesachim and Daf Yutes Amud Beis, that all spit that's found in Jerusalem is tahor. Okay? Chutz Mishel Shuk Ha'elyon, except the exception being the spit in the upper market. Spit in the upper market is tamei. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Okay? So on a general day of the year, so if you find spit in the middle of the street, so it's tamei in Jerusalem. But if you find spit on the sides of the street, so then it's tahor. Alright? But during the festivals, if you find spit in the middle of the street, it's tahor. If you find spit in the side of the street, it's pashut tamei. Great. How come? Because the minority group is the one who goes off to the side. So during the rest of the year, interestingly, most people will be tamei. Since most people are tamei, so they're the ones walking in the street, and therefore any spit in the street is tamei. But the people who are tahor are going to stay on the sides of the street, as we're going to learn later, because they're going to want to stay away from the tamei people. But during the regalim, everyone's becoming tahor, so they can go to the Beis HaMikdash. So then the spit in the street is takatar, and the spit on the sides is where the tamei people are going to be walking, and that's going to be tamei. So the ones who are sort of in the smaller group, they're the ones who go to the side. Any vessels that are found in Jerusalem, so if you find these vessels on the path that leads down to the mikveh, well then they're tamei. Makes sense, because why are they on the way down to the mikveh? Mistama, they're tamei and they have to go to the mikveh and somebody dropped it. But if you find the vessels on the way up from the mikveh, so then it's pure, because you can assume that it already came out of the mikvah. Okay? Shaloi kiridasan aliyasan divrei Meir, because there's a different path down than up. Okay? And therefore you could tell which path it's on. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, Rabbi Yossi Kulan Ta'orin, all of these vessels are pure. Chutz min asal, except for a basket, v'amagrefa, and a shovel, v'amritza, and a hammer. Hamiyuchad and l'kvarus, which are specific for graveyards. Alright? Sakin shenimtzes biyudal. This is also a Gemara that we saw in Masechta Pesachim, in the context of the Pesach Sheni, I believe. No. Or was it the Pesach Rishon? It was in the context of breaking the bones of the Korban Pesach. Oh, you know what it was? I think it was in the context of breaking the bones, dafka, of the Korban Chagiga. Okay. Chagigas Yudalit. So we say over here, Sakin Shenimtzeis B'Yudalit, if you find a knife on the 14th day of Nisan, i.e. Erev Pesach, Shochit B'Miyad, you can immediately use it to slaughter a Korban Pesach, because you can assume that whoever owned this knife had already put it in the mikvah, because he was going to be using it and he lost it. However, if you find the knife on the 13th of Nisan, well, then maybe the person hadn't yet brought it to the mikvah, so then you have to bring it to the mikvah. Okay? Kupitz bazu vaze shono matbil. However, a kupitz, which is like a cleaver, a starker knife that's used to break bones, well then whether you find it on the 13th, whether you find it on the 14th, you're going to have to take it to the mikveh. Because you don't break the bones of the Korban Pesach, so whoever owned this cleaver wasn't assuming, I better make sure that I put it in the mikveh. What do I need to put it in the mikveh for? I sound like I'm breaking the bones of the Korban Pesach anyways, and I think that this was the proof that you don't break the bones of the Korban Chagiga either, because if you do, then maybe you put it in the mikveh for the Korban Chagiga. I think that was the context. Anyways, if the 14th day of Taka, like this year, right? The 14th day of Nisan was Shabbos. Well then, Shochit B'Miyad. If you find a knife on the 13th day of Nisan, well then you can already slaughter with it immediately. You don't need to take it to the mikveh, because you can assume that whoever owned it initially had taken it to the mikveh already, because he wasn't going to be able to take it to the mikveh on Shabbos, so he brought it to the mikveh already by the 13th. B'tezvav, if you find a meat cleaver on the 15th, i.e. on Yom Tif, and on Yom Tif you're going to be breaking bones of the animals, because it's just regular meat for Simchas Yom Tif. So if you find a meat cleaver on Yom Tif, Shochit B'Miyad, you can use it for Shechita, because also, just like in the previous case, if you find it on Yom Tif, Mistama, whoever owned it already put it in the mikveh from before Yom Tif, so you could use it on Yom Tif. However, when we say that a meat cleaver, if you find a meat cleaver before Pesach, so you don't assume that somebody put it in the mikveh already. However, if you found it tied to a knife, well, just like we can assume that the knife already went to the mikveh, we can assume that the cleaver already went to the mikveh as well. Says the Gemara, so the question is, the Mishnah had said that spit found anywhere in Jerusalem is tahor. However, the exception is spit that's found in the upper market. Spit that's found in the upper market is tameh. The question is, what's the deal with the upper market? So, says that there was a laundry service, a non-Jewish laundry service in the upper market. Now the thing is, as we learned in the Gemara Nida, or Mishnah Nida, I think, that the non-Jews Gentiles have a status of Azav, and Azav is an Avatuma, and their spit is also an Avatuma, and therefore, there you go. So if there's a Gentile laundry service in the upper market, well then we have to be concerned about spit that's there might belong to them, and it's an Avatuma. Alright? Now there's some kind of weird Girsa thing, classic Yerushalmi Shkalim, I don't know, we'll just work with it. Amr B'Chanina Arudos Hayunochayim B'Yerushalayim. Alright, some kind of weird thing, but the text is weird. I think it's missing a whole bunch of words and whatever it is. But basically there's another opinion, which is that what was going on in the upper market is that there they would kill like wild donkeys or whatever. And so there's like nevela. Alright. So now, again, there's like missing words. Apparently, like one time, like people, are you nocharim b'Yerushalayim, are you ole regalim mishtakin b'dam ara kabusayim. That one time they were like killing all these donkeys in the upper market, and the people who came to be ole regel, there was so much blood therein that it was pushed up to their knees, I think. And they came before the rabbis to say, hey, what's the deal? Because we know that nevela is an avatuma. What about its blood? So they came in front of the rabbis, and the rabbis didn't say anything, which sounds like the blood of nevela would be okay, which is interesting. So now let's go weiter. This is a Gemara that we've seen before. We saw earlier in the Masechta. Rabbi Simon b'shem Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, Rabbi Simon and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Ma'aseh b'firda Mishal Beis Rebbe. There was a story with a donkey from the house of Rebbe. Shemesa, that Pasha, the donkey died. V'taru es damel mishum nevela. And they said that the blood was tahor. It's not an issue of nevela. Okay. Rabbi Elazar shal Rabbi Simon. Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Simon, ad kama v'lo agive. So Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Simon, he said, is there any maximum to this, the blood not being tameh, the blood being tahor? Is that any amount of blood will be tahor, or maybe it's only to a certain amount? But Rabbi Simon did not answer. Rabbi Elazar sharlei Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Amalei. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said to him, Ad revius tahor yosem mikain tameh, that there's a cap. That when we say that the blood of an nevela is tahor, it's only up to a revius. More than a revius will be tameh. Uvash Rabbi Elazar to lo chazalei Rabbi Simon shmuasa, and Rabbi Elazar was a shtickle insulted that Rabbi Simon ignored him. Rabbi Bivi Yosef masni adein uvda. We've seen this also before. The Rabbi Bivi was sitting and teaching this sugya about the blood of a nevela. Amalei Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bisna ad kama. So Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bisna asked Rabbi Bivi, he says, is there a cap? Is there a maximum of how much blood remains tahor? Amalei ad Ravi is tahor yosem mikain tameh. Uvad Bey. I think that there might be some kind of weird gears to think here, but basically, Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bisna asked Rabbi Bivi, is there a cap? Is it only up to a revius? Uvad Bey, and Rabbi Bivi kind of like responded not so nice. Rabbi Zrika begin to have a shalach ad Ba'id Bey. Rabbi Zrika says to Rabbi Bivi, what, just because somebody asks you a kasha, you have to be not nice? Amalei begin to lahavas daiti be. So Rabbi Bivi said, no, it's because I'm sorry, I was spacing out. My thoughts were elsewhere. Then when the pasuk says that your life will be dangling before you, that's talking about somebody who doesn't have his own property, doesn't have his own food, and he needs to buy from elsewhere food for a year. So it's shtickle b'di'evid. When the pasuk continues and says you'll be scared day and night, that's somebody who can't afford to buy enough food for the entire year, so he buys it in smaller amounts. Then when the pasuk continues and says you won't be able to even believe in your life, that's somebody who has so little money that he can't afford to buy anything more than just the day's bread from a baker. And says Rabbi Bivi, I'm in that third category of people who are so poor that they can only afford to buy that day's amount of bread from the baker. So for that reason, Rabbi Bivi says that his mind was elsewhere, which is why he didn't give the proper respect to Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bisna when he asked about if there's a cap for how much blood of an nevela remains tahor. My kedun, no, so what's the halacha? Okay, fine, so Rabbi Bivi spaced out. Okay, no, what's the halacha? So hey, Rabbi Yoshua ben Psora, ben Psora testified, Adam nevela shau tahor, that the blood of nevelas is tahor. So that sounds like tahor to any amount. The blood of nevela is pasha tahor. Sumau tahor, the Gemara says no, it doesn't necessarily mean that the blood of nevela is tahor completely. It means tahor milahachshir. It means, the blood of nevela will never be machshir other things like kabul tuma. Of course, we know that in order for something to become tameh, it has to come in contact with water, with one of the 7 liquids. What if it came in contact with blood of a nevela? So we're saying here, that blood of an Nevela at any amount is unable to be machshir other things that they will now be able to become tameh in the future. But they themselves are tameh, can be metame other things by more than a revius, when it's more than a revius. Halitame metame, but it can be metame other things. Tamotanin. But 1 second, we have a kasha, we have a mishnah that says dama sheretz metame kivsaro, that the blood of a sheretz is metame just like it itself is metame. Metame ve'eno machshir, and it makes other things tameh, but it can't. The blood cannot be machshir other things to now be able to become tameh in the future. There's no other example like this, and therefore, what it would sound like from this Mishnah is that only the blood of a sheretz is in this category of things that is able to be metame other things, but cannot be machshir other things that kabel tumah. The implication being that the blood of nevela is excluded from that category, and therefore, it must be that when Rabbi Yeshua ben Psora says that the blood of nevela is tar, it means completely tar, not just that it's not machshir other things that kabel tumah, because only sheretz has that status. And therefore it must mean that the blood of a nevela is mamish tahor at all amounts, according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Psora. Says the Gemara, where am I? So the Gemara answers no. When it means that there's no other things that are similar to the sheretz, it means it's shi'ur. Aval damo metame kivsaro. Sheretz is unique in that the amount that it's metame, it's metame other things already if it's the size of a lentil, which is a pretty small amount, and that's unique to sheretz. So when it says that there's no other things similar to sheretz, it means sheretz is the only case where it makes other things tameh when it's only the size of a lentil. That's what's unique to sheretz. However, in terms of not being able, right, in terms of the fact that the blood of a sheretz is not machshir other things that kabel tumah, guess what? It's not the only one. Blood of a nevela also is not machshir other things that kabel tumah. So therefore we're saying that when Rabbi Yeshua ben Psora says that the blood of nevela is tahor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always tahor no matter what amount. No, it's tahor. You can argue that it's tahor up to a revius, but more than a revius, it'll be tameh. And when we say, so then what does it mean that it's tahor? It means that it will never be machshir other things that kabel tumah. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi, pligi ba tre amorayin. There's taka machlokas amorayin about more than a revius of blood of a nevela. Chad omer tameh, chad omer tar. One of them says that when it's more than a revius, it's tameh. One of them says that when it's more than a revius, it's tar. So Manda Amar tameh Rabbi Yehuda. So Manda Amar who says that when you have a revius of blood of a nevela, it's tameh. So it's like Rabbi Yehuda. We'll see Rabbi Yehuda in a second. Manda Amar tar Rabbi Yeshua ben Psora. And says Rabbi Yossi that the Manda Amar who says that when you have a revius of more than a revius of blood of a nevela, it's tahor. It's like Rabbi Yeshua ben Psora. So I guess Rabbi Yossi wants to assume that according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Psora, taka means that even if it's more than a revius of blood, it's tahor. Okay. Interesting. So it says Rav Avduma de Minachusa that it makes sense to say that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is that when there's blood of a nevela more than a revius, it's tameh, because we said that by the house of Rebbe, there was this donkey that they killed and the blood was tahor, and they said only up to a revius. And it makes sense because as we saw earlier, we saw this entire Gemara earlier, but as we said there, and we say here, that Rabbi Yehuda, interestingly enough, was the posek for the house of Rebbe. And therefore it makes sense to say that if in the house of Rebbe they assumed that if there's a blood of a nevela more than a revius, it's tameh, that's going to be like Rabbi Yehuda, who was the posek of the house of Rebbe, which is super interesting. What's also super interesting is that we see that Rebbe learned with like all of the students of Rabbi Akiva. We've seen already, we've been learning together now for not exactly a year and a half, but a year and a quarter, whatever it is. We've seen in a whole bunch of different places Rebbe learning with Reb Meir, Reb Shimon, Reb Elazar ben Shamua, Now we're seeing that Take's posek was Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. These are all students of Rabbi Akiva. Super interesting. We've also seen all sorts of things with Rebbe, with the son, with like Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi. So I don't know if he necessarily learned directly with Rabbi Yossi, but definitely there was that link through his son. Very interesting. Let's go weiter in Shas. So we said, great, any spit in Jerusalem. So Lokein Amar Rabbabahu b'Shem Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina lo gazu ala roken shebi Yerushalayim. But 1 second, didn't Rabbabahu say the name of Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina that they did not make a decree against the spit in Jerusalem? So it says above in the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that no, specifically it's talking about the upper market because there was that the Gentile laundromat, and their spit would be an avatuma. So we said that the rest of the year, so the Tamei people walk in the middle of the street. So I think also here the text is like all messed up. So I don't know. I'm just gonna read. So what I'm gonna say isn't gonna be in line with the text, but whatever. So Shibolas Vator Malchin b'tzad. Fine. So the Torah people walk on the side. Vator Mahalchin stam. Vatmeim omrim loyan proshu. Yeah, you see that I think is not correct. But basically the point is that the Tahor people walk on the sides because they say that they want to stay away from the Tamei people who are walking in the middle of the street. B'shas HaRegel, during the festival, HaTahor and Malchin Shibolis, the Tahor people who are the majority walk in the middle, Vatmei Malchin min Atzad, and the Tamei people walk on the side, Vatmei Malchin Stam, Vatahor and Om Lu Proshu. Yeah, this I think is backwards. But the now in the Regel on the festival, so then the Tahor people walk in the street because they're the majority, as we said in the Mishnah, and the Tamei people walk on the sides because they say, look, we don't want to make you Tamei, we're going to stay away from you. Thank you, Tamei people. So we said, we're talking about the vessels that are found in Jerusalem on the way down to the mikveh, on the way up to the mikveh. But didn't Rabbi Babahu say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that there's no gezerah about the vessels in Jerusalem, i.e. you can assume that they're tar. So why are we saying that if you find it on the way down to the mikveh, it's tamei? So the Gemara says, well, this is an exceptional case. Since you found this vessel on the way down to the mikveh, there's only one way to explain it. It was tamei. They were taking it down to the mikveh. But other than that, you can assume that it's tar. This hammer that they would use, right? Rabbi Yossi said that everything is tar except for the basket, the shovel, and the hammer. So this hammer, Abishal would call it a fingernail. So the reason why Abishal called it a fingernail is because it looked like a fingernail. Alright? Mandamar calls it a maritza is because it like crushes a crusher. So it crushes the stones in the graveyard. Alright? So we had said in the Mishnah that if you find a kupitz, this cleaver, tied together to a knife, so you could treat it like the knife, i.e. that you can assume that it went to the mikvah already. We have a brisa that says the opposite, which is that you have to treat it like the cleaver, assume that it didn't go to the mikvah. Okay, sounds good to me. Says Halacha Beis, says the Mishnah, Parocha shenit meis bevlada tuma. So if you have the paroches from the Beis Hamikdash, now there's different options of what it could be. It could be the curtain on the way into the ulam to get which is on the way into the heichal, or it could be the curtain in the Bayis Sheni that separated the kodesh and the kodesh HaKodeshim. Okay, but this curtain that became tamei from a vlada tuma. Matbilin also bifnim machnisin osamiyad. So you can take it, you can dip it in the mikveh, you can immerse it in the mikveh already in the azara, in one of the in the mikveh that they had in the azara, in the lishkas beis aparve, and then you can use it immediately. Vishenid meis ba'avatuma. However, if it became tamei from an avatuma, matbilin also b'chutz, so we can put it in the mikveh, so then we have to take it out of the azara and immerse it in the mikveh outside of the azara. V'shotchin osa b'chel, and then they leave it out to dry in the chel, which is like this place, kind of like in the walls of the, like in between the walls of the azara. Because if it became tummy from an avatuma, then it needs to wait until the evening. So they take it out of the azara, immerse it in the mikvah, let it hang out in the chel, and then only by the evening does it become usable again in the azara. If it was a new curtain, and therefore every new curtain they would always immerse in the mikvah. So if they were immersing in the mikvah because it was new, well then they spread it outside on top of these benches that they had in Har HaBayis for people to sit on, and they had the porticos. So they were covered, so they would spread out these new curtains on top of these porticos, so that everybody could see the beautiful work of these curtains, the beautiful craftsmanship. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer says, Reb Shimon Gamliel Mishum Reb Shimon ben Asegen, in the name of Reb Shimon, the son of the deputy Kohen Gadol, Paroches Ovya Tefach, that this curtain had a thickness of a fist. Al Shivim V'Shtayim Nimim Ne'ereges, and in order to weave it, they needed a loom with 72 heddle shafts. And each thread of the curtain was made up of 24 threads, all woven into one large thread. The length of the curtain was 40 amas, and the width was 20 amas. It cost 820,000 golden dinars to produce. And they would make 2 of these curtains each year, 2 new ones. And it took 300 Kohanim in order to immerse it. And as the Rashbam pointed out in Masechta Psachim, in the parak of Arvei Psachim, whenever the Gemara or the Mishnah says 300, it's an exaggeration, and we're going to see that the Gemara is going to say the same thing, but it was certainly a pretty significant production. Says the Gemara, Ilu Amr Chut, if the pasuk would say that the curtains for the Mishkan were made out of a thread, so then that would mean echad. It would mean one, a thread, just one thread. Kaful, if it said double, so l'shnaim, so it would mean 2 threads. Shazur, if it would say shazur, it would mean l'shlosha, it would mean 3 threads. Moshazar, but it doesn't say shazur, it says moshazar, so that's l'shisha. So it means that each thread was 6 threads thick. Arba mikano esim v'arba. Now each thread in the Mishkan was made up of 4 types, right? Tchelis, argawan, tulas, shani, v'sheish. So there were 3, types of threads, all merged into one. 4 types of threads, all merged into one, and each thread had a thickness of 6. So there were 6 tcheles, 6 argamon, 6 tulashani, 6 sheish. Then you take all of that and weave it into one thread. So each thread was made up of 24 sub-threads. Tani shloshim v'shtayim, another price that teaches, another opinion is taka 32 threads. Ilu amar chut echad, kaful l'shnayim. If it said chut, it would mean 1. Kaful, double, would mean 2. Shazur, if it said shazur, it would mean la'arba, it would mean 4. But it doesn't say that. It says moshazar, which is l'shmona, so that's 8. Arba, and there are 4 different types. So mikan, hot and vitrain. So we see that the thickness of each thread was actually 32 threads thick. Tana arba'im v'shmona. There's actually an opinion that says it was 48. Ilu amr chut echad. Okay, again, if it would say in the pasuk chut, that would only mean 1 thread. Kaful, if it would say double, then the shnayim, it would mean 2. Kliya, if it said kliya, then that would be the shlosha, that would be 3. Shazur, if it said shazur, then that would mean the shisha, that would mean 6. But it doesn't say that any of those. It says moshazar, so then that's even double that, which is a shnei masa, which is 12. Arba, and we know that there's 4 different materials for each thread, so it's 12 times 4. Mikano arba'im v'tmanya. That's how we know that it's 48. Alright, sounds good to me. One pasuk says regarding one of the curtains that it was an embroiderer's work, and a pasuk says regarding another curtain that it was a ma'aseh choshev, like a professional weaver's work. I think embroiderer versus weaver. I think that's what it is. Ma'aseh rokem partzuf echad, ma'aseh choshev shnei partzufin. So embroidering is 1 face and weaving is 2 faces. So what does this mean, 1 face versus 2 faces? Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia, it's machlokas Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia, Chad Amar, Ma'aseh rokem. Oh yeah, I think that all the words are kind of messed up over here, so I'm just going to read it as I remember it. So one of them says Ma'aseh rokem means Ari Mikan v'chalak mikan, I think, that when it says an embroiderer, it means that you can have a lion on one side of it, and on the other side there's nothing there at all. And when it's woven, so then you have a lion on one side, and you can have a lion on both sides. So if it's embroidered, you can only have the embroidery on one side, whereas weaving, you can have something woven into both sides. The other opinion is rokim ari mikan v'ari mikan. The other opinion is that embroidery means that you can get the same thing on both sides, a line on both sides. Whereas weaving, what's special about weaving is you can have two different designs, one on either side. So you can have a lion on one side of the parochas while you have an eagle on the other side of the parochas. So we said that it was 812,000 golden dinars, and that it took 300 kohanim in order to immerse this paroches. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bizna b'shem Shmuel Guzma says Rabbi Yitzchak bar Bizna, the name of Shmuel, that it's taka an exaggeration when it says 300 kohanim. Taman taninim paimim baya aleh kishlosh meos kor. There we learned, where is it, Masechta Tamid or something, that sometimes it would be 300 kor of ashes on the mizbeach, which is a lot of ashes. So Rabbi Yehuda Bei Reb Bun b'shem Shmuel Guzman. Rabbi Yehuda Bei Rav Avun says in the name of Shmuel that it's an exaggeration, and it's like the Rashbam says in Arvei Pesachim that whenever it says 300, it's talking exaggeration, which is interesting. No, that was Daf Chof Aleph of Masechta Shkalim. We only have one daf left in Masechta Shkalim. What a crazy Masechta. Anyways, we discussed the Gemara started off finishing discussing the Tanai Bezdins that we started talking about yesterday. We discussed the Minchas Chavitin, we discussed the Efer Para Aduma. Then we moved on to the final parak. We were discussing things that we have actually seen earlier in Masechta Shkalim, earlier in Masechta Pesachim, about the spit in Jerusalem, the kelim in Jerusalem, finding a knife on Erev Pesach versus a meat cleaver. And then we also saw that sugya about the revius of dam. If you have the revius of a dam of Venevela, one opinion is arguably that it is not tameh at all. The other opinion would be that more than a revius of it would be tameh. Alright, have a great day. Peace out.